All right, I just went out and picked up this skid steer yesterday. It's a New Holland L35. I am guessing it's a late 70s, mid 80s, early 80s, somewhere around there. I did find the serial number and model number, but I haven't looked it up yet. But not really my biggest priority concern to figure out what year it is. I haven't had to order any actual New Holland parts for it yet. It came with a big, I want to say, what's 8 foot? 8 foot is 96. So I'm guessing this is 7.5 foot snow bucket. And then it did also come with a set of good pallet forks, which I've got sitting behind the camper there, and then a gravel bucket, which the guy was 90% done converting over to this style hookup. And then he kind of lost interest, and he went out and bought a Bobcat 753. And that one, he said he downgraded on the lift capacity. The lift capacity of this one, I think, is about 1,845. So just say 1,800. And of course, it's probably, in reality, it's probably 2,000, but we'll just say 1,800. And the weight of the machine, I believe, is about 4,500 without an attachment. With this bucket, it might be closer to 5 or 5,200, something like that. It's got the Wisconsin 4-cylinder 36 or 37 horsepower engine. It's a VG4D. I believe that's what it is. I got that. You can kind of sort of see right in there. Yeah, VG4D. And the machine is, I mean, I got a really, really, really good deal on it. It's got new tires. It's got really low hours, I believe. What does it say there? 2273 for hours. And it's got the auxiliary hookups over there. And then the pedal is just down on the floor. It does have quite a few little quirks. But anyways, new tires. Engine runs like a Wisconsin runs. I mean, it doesn't run as good as a Kohler or something like that. It's got a couple very minor hydraulic leaks, and I'm trying to think of what else. Well, like I say, and it came with the attachments too. Anyways, I paid $5,000 for the thing. He had it posted for $5,500. I know damn well this machine could have sold for $8,000 the way it sits, but I just told him honestly, you know, for one, I hated the color. I hate this ugly shit lime yellow, whatever the hell, just nasty color it is. And of course, I'm not a guy for cosmetics, but this is just hideous. So I am going to be painting it a different color of silver. Or not silver. I just looked at a silver car going by. Darker yellow, like a case yellow, and then I'll be doing the actual loader arms black. As for the stuff that needs to be fixed, well, this is going to be long-winded because this is a machine from, again, the mid-70s, mid-80s. And yes, it has low hours, but she's been passed around to a few different guys at the bar. The disconnect up here, it's sort of like a quick attach, but not. I mean, basically all you do is push down on this lever, and then it lifts the thing up, and then you curl this plate out, and then it's similar to a quick attach. However, there's supposed to be, I don't know if you can see that cable kind of dangling down right there. The cable is supposed to be connected to both of them. And then right in here, again, it's hard to see because it's sitting down so low, but you can kind of see that little gap right there. There's supposed to be a handle that you slide, and when you do, it pulls on the cables, and it pulls up on both the arms. So when you're sitting in the cab, you can lean out, move the cable over, and then unhook it. Right now, the only way to do it is to unhook the springs from the plate and then let the arms drop and then do it. It's an extra step, but whatever. It leaks out of the end of this auxiliary fitting here. Again, that's just a simple fitting. The throttle control is the thing that kind of, it really irritates me because I've never had a machine that's had working throttle control, like from the factory, like the original, the way it's supposed to be set up. This lever here, I did tighten that up. It's supposed to be a very snug, tight deal. All right, I got interrupted by a customer there who rolled in. So anyways, I filmed that last bit about 5 hours ago. I just remember I was talking about the actual throttle here. So it's supposed to be really snug, and when it's pushed back, it's at idle. When it's all the way forwards, it's at full throttle. The guy had this janky as hell, you know, you pull it up, and then it's supposed to like latch over these screws that he threw into the side there. That did not work. I took that out. I tried to make my method work by putting a nut and bolt through this and then threading the cable through just temporarily, because I have not been able to source the original cable for this machine. That's just not going to happen. It's just not. That cable doesn't exist anymore. I tried that. It doesn't work. I switched back to this and tightened everything up, so now it does actually stay full throttle when you have it at full throttle. Before, it used to creep back down to idle. Anyways, so yeah, I also forgot to mention, I know I said it came with these pallet fork attachments here, and then I've got in the back of my truck over there a, I guess you'd call it a mock cherry picker. It's basically a piece of square steel tubing that comes out, has a hole at the end of it, and then you can hook a chain in it and lift engines out and whatever. It's not a extendable one, but again, it basically came with 4 attachments for the machine. Before anyone goes chewing me out about putting my head and all this under this is perfectly safe. They have I mean, you have to raise this machine up in order to work on the engine. They have these lockout pins here, and they're supposed to just go right in this hole here, but I mean, it does the same thing whether it goes through the hole or goes on the bottom there. Basically, you raise the arms up as high, well, not as high as they'll go, but that high, and then that lever right in here. You can see it says lift linkage lock, so you go ahead and put that in the engage, and that pushes the rods out on both sides, and then you lower the hydraulics onto it, and then they rest there, and that's it. It's safe to work on. So, I mean, I could stand under this for hours, and the only possible thing that's going to happen is that would come out, but more so you're working in the back here. So, and just a quick side note on that, that is something you do need to take very seriously. If your machine did not have these pins on this, my stepdad's friend, his kid had one of these, exact same machine, exact same everything. He was working on something back here, and he had his head under the engine bay, and he didn't have those out, and I can't remember what he was doing, if he disconnected a line, came down, chopped his head clean off, killed him instantly. And so you need to be safe about this stuff. If it didn't have those locking pins there, you'd be throwing 2x4s from the frame up against the thing up here, or, you know, and just go overkill, because it takes one mistake and these things will kill you. Okay, anyways, going over some more of the stuff that this thing needs. The fuel gauge doesn't work. I ran it out of fuel just a little bit ago. But, you know, that's easy enough to refill. It's actually easier to refill with these arms up here, because then you can actually put your gas tank in here and tilt it in. When I had to fill it up when the arms were down, I had to climb onto the back of this and then use a funnel and kind of splash gas everywhere near the hot exhaust. And let me tell you, that was a fun time. You can see it's leaking exhaust really badly with all the black shit everywhere in here. I did order exhaust gaskets for that. However, I am going to have to pull this motor out completely, and while I have it out, I'll just replace every single one of the gaskets. They make gasket kits that have every single gasket for like $70. It's got a couple minor little leaks, but nothing terrible. The guy put new cap and rotor on it, and it has a recent oil filter change within the last 30 hours. It does have a couple hydraulic leaks. What do you know? It's a fucking machine from the 70s. Who could imagine it having hydraulic leaks? They aren't that bad until it warms up, and then they get really bad. And there's one spot right underneath here that I'm going to have to lift up the seat and see if I can find it. But somewhere under here, it, I mean, literally leaves a puddle while it's running. You can see it's like someone turned the faucet on the lowest thing to where it's just a steady stream coming out. And he told me that it was just a small leak, but that is a major leak that'll have to be addressed. Another funky thing about this design, these are two-way rams. However, from the factory, it has these plugs in here, and that's just because the weight of the arms itself act as the downward pressure, meaning technically you can't lift the front wheels up, but you can. You just have to lower the arms completely to the ground and have your bucket flat, and then once it's on the ground, you curl the bucket down and it holds its pressure in these arms. But like I say, you can't put downwards pressure in them. So once it's flat on the ground, these things stay locked into place, and then you press the right pedal and curl the front of the bucket forwards, and that'll lift the front of the machine up. It's a minor thing. I mean, I'm able to get by with it. However, when I used to scrape the snow that used to be right in front of the garage here, it looks like Mariana's Trench right now, but when the packed down snow and ice would build up here, I used to take my old skid steer and basically put the bucket, you know, if it's supposed to be sitting like this, I would curl it straight down and then push it into the ground and drag it backwards. In fact, sometimes I even put a little bit of a negative angle and drag it backwards, and that would just break every single little bit of ice and snow and chop that up. You can back drag with this and sort of do some grading. I did a little bit with the snow bucket from when I tore up the actual county road over there, and it works. But the problem is when you have downwards pressure, when you pull back on the sticks to move backwards, it, you know, the arms actually like float back up. So the way these hydraulics are set up, you can't have downwards pressure and basically negative pressure on these main lift arms while moving backwards. I don't know why that is. Maybe that was an oversight on their part. But regardless, I'm able to get by with it. Okay, moving on to the back for the stuff that it needs. It's got a small oil leak down by that oil pressure deal down there. I'm assuming that's what it is. I'm not super familiar with these Wisconsin engines. Like, I mean, I hate them. I hate them so much. And if this motor was blown up, I still would have bought this machine, but I would have put, I've got a Volkswagen engine. It's like a 1.5 gas from an 82 Rabbit. I'd either put that in here, or I would put a Perkins or a Volkswagen 1.6 diesel. I mean, anything other than this. I hate these motors. Another thing, the air filter just keeps popping off the carburetor, so that's got to be really healthy. So I got to adjust that. I don't know the last time the hydraulic filter was changed. That needs to be done. The wiring's a complete and total mess. I have not checked the air filter yet. What else? I got the alternator hooked up incorrectly, but that's the easiest way to do it right now. So on this alternator, I think it's just a generic old Chevy one. This battery post is what feeds your 14 volts. One of these is, I believe it's this left one, is key on or ignition power. And then this bottom one is all the time. So basically one of these energizes, I don't think it's called the stator. I'm not super familiar with alternators, but basically when it senses 12 volts, it actually engages the brushes, so it'll put out 14 volts and charge. They didn't have this hooked up. Well, they had it hooked up similar to this. So right now, when that's happening, it causes the battery to drain flat. All right, I mean, that literally takes 30 seconds to do. You pull the seat out, that bar right there sits into these little brackets on either side. So all you do is pull it, lift it out, and then that plate just sits right on those. There's no bolt holes holding anything in. I know there used to be a seat belt. There would have had to have been where that hole there and that hole there are. There's not anymore, and that is absolutely something I am going to add. But actually getting inside the machine here, there are a couple of problems that need to be addressed really soon. Down there is where the battery used to sit, and this is the ground cable just dangling around in there. Again, I probably will relocate the battery to there because I want to build some kind of shroud for the back there so it can be parked outside and get rained on and won't get full of water and mess with the electronics and crap. So that leak, looks like the puddle is right down there, so oh joy, it's probably coming out of that pump. I'm really hoping it's not, because that's something that's extremely expensive to fix. But anyways, this is the biggest problem. So this is that joint I was talking about, that drive shaft that comes off the thing. There is quite a bit of play in the actual, it's not in the joints, it's in the shaft that goes into the main pump. And like I say, there is quite a bit of play there. Beyond that, it's got high speed and low speed. High speed is maybe 25% quicker than low, but it does work. Took me about 5 minutes. It took me about 5 minutes to go a mile down the road to the gas station and 5 minutes back. The guy did replace one hose there. The way they've got this auxiliary pump routed, they've got this hose, literally fused into the main pump. So that's not going to work. Again, right now, while this is still warm, I need to try to find where that's leaking from and kind of see what I can see. It looks a little bit wet up on top here. So maybe that's just going to be a gasket, and when it gets hot, it kind of builds up under pressure, sort of like a cooling system, and finds places to leak out. But again, I need to jack this up and see what I can find quick before that drip goes away, because I don't want to run this thing dry, and I don't want to have to run it and waste even more fluid. Alright, I don't know how good you're going to be able to hear me, because this is as quiet as it gets. This is at idle. So this is an earmuff all the time machine. Anyways, yeah, I'm just gonna see here. I got the wheel chalked off there so it won't roll anywhere. But I'm gonna see if I can't find that leak. I'm wondering if it's actually coming from this auxiliary hose that's been worn through. All right, it looks like the leak is coming out of that left-hand driver side. Again, I don't know if that would be the drive motor for that side. I'd have to imagine it would be, because when you move the actual high-low range, it pivots on the pump on that side. So that's going to be fucking expensive, and yeah. Not looking forward to that. For now, for what I need the machine for, I'm just going to have to continue to keep adding fluid, and that's going to be a midsummer project. I think that's going to involve completely replacing that entire center section, or rather removing it, not replacing it. But removing that entire center section, I'll have to disconnect every bit of linkage, every hose, and if I'm doing all that, I'm obviously going to replace the hoses that I need to replace at that time. Same goes for the linkage. On this side, when you pull it forwards and backwards, it moves forwards and backwards. On this side, they did something with the actual link there, so now it's got tons of slop before it actually starts to move. And so I'll have to actually replace that little joint they put there with the actual factory one there that just has a bolt hole go right through it, and then it grabs on both sides. So yeah, that's going to involve quite a bit of work. Again, not the end of the world. Anytime you buy a machine like this, there's going to be some expensive repair that you've got to do. Let me see here. If I have to remove that. I'm probably going to have to take this cover off and the wheels and tires off. And it's pretty much just going to be the arms and the frame and the cylinders. Otherwise, the tires, engine, you know, all that crap's going to be gone. I don't know. You know, on the one hand, I am not going to spend $2,000 to get this pump fixed, because you can probably go online and find that pump for, I don't know, I would say 500, maybe 1,000. But at the same time, I know a lot of guys get really touchy about rebuilding hydraulic pumps. And yes, there are extremely tight tolerances, but if you bring it to a machine shop and they check out the tolerances and everything is within spec and it was just a bad gasket or a seal or whatever, there's no reason a regular guy like me can't just reseal the things and call it good and slap a coat of paint on it and be done with it. Okay, this is just going to be a quick final comment on this L35 here. Again, this video was mainly just me kind of giving you the quick walk around of it. I didn't get any video of the thing operating because my GoPro will not record at anything above like 720p no matter what I do, and the battery gets even slightly cold, it just cuts out and stops filming. So I can't get a time lapse of this thing actually working, but we just got dumped on with more fucking snow, wouldn't you know it. It's April, I think, 4th or 5th today. Every single time it starts to dry up, I mean, this is legitimately the 5th time this year that everything is melted away, been dry, and then we get fucking dumped on by wet, heavy, shitty snow, and then it's just a muddy mess again. Which is amazing, because Lake George has extremely sandy soil, but it finds a way. So, anyways, I'm going to show you under the machine here really quick. Basically, where the machine is actually leaking, this has the Vickers pump. I don't know if you're able to see that. Right there in the center of the screen, it says Vickers, which is the more common option of these. And basically, let me get this magnet to where you can see it a little bit better. Or this light, I should say. All right, so right here is the 4-way gearbox, and this is the drive shaft that goes from the engine directed into the thing. Now, I thought there was slop in this main bearing, which is a big, big, big no-no, because this is literally the same as a rear end on a truck or any other gearbox. If there's slop in that, it's going to make the teeth mesh funky and wear the shit out of the gears. Now, I looked into gears. There are a few available, and there are a total of 3 gears in this. They're $580 a piece. Fuck that. I'm not paying that much. It would be cheaper for me to go to a machine shop and pay them to make one from scratch. So, not doing that. I am going to, while I'm down here, just pull this drain plug out, because this takes regular gear oil, and just see if there's metal shavings in there. I don't think there's going to be. But anyways, the slop is just on the actual spline to the drive shaft. So it's not, I thought it was the shaft moving up and down. It's just the slop in between these two pieces. So I'm okay there. It's still not ideal, but it's not as bad as I thought. So we're good there. Anyways, the way this is leaking is basically you have the 4-way gearbox going into another gearbox, and then something called a vane pump, which is just a hydraulic pump, and then the actual drive motor. So it's gearbox to pump to motor. So in between the pump and I can't remember if it was leaking between the pump and the motor or the pump and the gearbox. Either way, it's leaking in between the two. I tried tightening the bolts on the bottom. They are extremely tight, so they're not, it wasn't like the bolts rattled loose over the years. So one thing I'm going to try, I'm not a fan of stop leak products. However, since this is a low pressure leak and it's not actually like spraying out, I mean, I'd have to assume, because like I say, it's a steady drip. Maybe it is a high pressure leak, but I'm going to try some hydraulic seal conditioner and stop leak. Just again, in the meantime, I fully intend on tearing this complete entire assembly out and resealing everything that I can without it getting crazy expensive, and painting everything and replacing the hydraulic lines and going through the machine and all, not, you know, all the good stuff. But I just want to see if it will slow down the leak as a temporary thing, so I'm not adding a gallon of hydraulic fluid, or, well, hydraulic fluid. It takes engine oil. It's 10W40, but I'm not planning on throwing engine oil stop leak in here, because that shit is full of stuff that'll clog your pumps and whatnot. But the hydraulic seal conditioner is supposed to, again, just recondition hydraulic seals, and if not stop the leak, at least slow it down. So I'm going to try that and take the gamble. If I end up taking out a pump, well, whatever. And now that I'm looking at the two differences of the pumps here, this one's still completely yellow. This one ain't got hardly any yellow on it other than that little cap. So I'm wondering if that pump has been replaced at some point. I don't know. It's possible, and they just didn't put new gaskets or new seals or O-rings or whatever it is that actually fits in between the plates there. I don't know. But I don't think these pumps are too expensive for like a remanufacture. I think they're like $800-900, which isn't bad for a pump. But again, I'm gonna mess with that more here in a bit. But just I'll again post an update video if it slows down the leak or not. If I can get it down to like a quarter of a gallon an hour, that's acceptable for me. It's still a big leak, but it's better than a gallon an hour. And one more thing before people go asking me why the hell would I be dumping all this money into an old beat up machine. You cannot, you know, say I had to replace both pumps, and let's just say $1,500 a pump for easy math. Let's say I had to replace the transmissions, and again, these are all remanufacture prices. You could find them cheaper. But let's say I had to put like $7 grand into this machine between pumps and hoses and transmissions and gearboxes and gears and seals and whatever. $7 grand to where this thing will not leak a single drop, and it is in perfect operating condition. So again, that, and I'm subtracting $2,000 for all the attachments that I got with this. So in reality, I'd be into this machine for $10,000. Okay, you can't touch a decent skid steer for $10,000. You can't. If anybody says, well, I got an 863 and I only paid $5 grand at an auction, that's an auction. That's totally different. And if someone says, well, my buddy sold me, that's your buddy. Okay, this machine will lift a car. I tested it. It only lifts it about 3-4 inches off the ground, but I put it through the windows and lifted up on the roof, and this thing can move a car. And that was a 05 Outback with engine and transmission, and I think that was about 3,600 pounds, something like that. It didn't lift it 8 feet up in the air. It lifted it just enough off the ground to literally have all 4 wheels off, okay? If you buy a skid steer like a Bobcat newer than 1990 that'll do that, you are going to pay 20 to 25 grand minimum. So basically, the way I look at it, I'll have a $25,000 machine equivalent. You know what? This machine won't be worth $25,000 all fixed up. It might be worth 15 if I go through and seal everything and paint it and, you know, make it not so jerry-rigged. It might be worth 15, but I have no intentions of selling it. Like I say, if I go through and really put the effort into this thing, I will have the equivalent of a $25,000 machine for about 10 grand plus my time. And then it'll last me, you know, right now it's, let's say this is a 1972, just for easy math. It's a 50-year-old machine. Again, it might be 40, it might be 45, but let's just say 50. It'll last me another 50 years before it starts nickel and diming me and shit like that. And, you know, that's not to say it'll have 50 years without a problem, but, you know, it'll be in the same shape in 50 years if I go through and fix everything, and maybe even last longer. If I park it in a garage and, as a mechanic, really thoroughly take care of the thing and don't abuse it, it'll probably outlast me. So Like I say, that's why I'm putting all this time and money and energy into it, because it is worth it. Some guys might have differing opinions on that, but I really do think everyone, for the most part, would agree it's worth sinking the money into and making the machine in pristine shape. So again, this video is mainly just going around talking, whatever, pointing the camera, not actually doing any work, which most of my videos are anyways. But I will go through and fix this when I get my shop built this fall. So like I say, it probably won't have any teardown videos until November, December of 2022, and then I'll probably be fixing it over the winter and, you know, again, quote unquote, restoring it, but I won't be, you know, babying the thing for the rest of its life. It just barely fits in the garage by about 3 inches to spare that I've got right now, which is good because, you know, again, I think it's only 76 inches from my garage door to the ground there. So yeah, I'm trying to get the hell out of this shop and get an actual shop built with 16-foot ceilings and all that stuff. So yeah, again, if you happen to know anybody who has any L35 parts or parts machines, there's only one right now on Facebook that I checked in, I think, 500-mile radius of Lake George, Minnesota. And that one they're asking $4,500 for, and it's an operating machine. I have no intentions of buying that one because obviously it, you know, would probably have the same issues as this, and I wouldn't get $4,500 worth of new or like new or extremely good condition parts